Hello and welcome to Heroes and Legends. ABS, a very special celebration of the Sport Australia Hall of Fame.
Haim, tonight we honour our Australian sporting heroes and hear the stories behind the moments that captured our imagination. We have 9 new Hall of Famers to announce and 2 existing members set to be elevated to legends of Australian sport.
Plus, we reveal the winner of the Don Award for the athlete or team who most inspired the nation this year, and the Dawn Award for a courageous groundbreaker who rose to great heights against the odds.
We're going to hear from plenty of your sporting favourites too throughout the show. Lane Beachley, Luke Longley, Lisa Jones, and that's just to name a few.
Big names. But now to an announcement that will resonate with all of us. Our first legend of the evening.
Shane Keith Warne. For me, the greatest ever spin bowler to have played the game of cricket. In fact, for me, he is clearly the greatest cricketer of the modern era. For the 15 years that he represented Australia, I, like you, were witness to something very special. A global superstar that changed our game forever. He single-handedly inspired a generation of boys and girls all around the world who wanted to be like Shane Warne, wanting to bowl spin and dominate batters and games alike. I don't know what it was, but Shane and I hit it off from our very first introduction in 1992 at the Cricket Academy in Adelaide. We became instant mates. He showed me the ropes, gave me my nickname that has stuck with me ever since, and laid the foundation for a lifetime of memories, both on and off the field. I miss those chats so much. Fitting that one of my fondest memories playing with Warnie was our 2006 Ashes Test win back in Adelaide. The game they said we couldn't win. But in England's second innings, it was time for the world to see the absolute brilliance that was Shane Warne. It was time to sit back and watch the king on his stage. He bowled 32 of the most extraordinary overs, taking 4 for 49 in a performance that set up our eventual win. When reflecting on a few words and statements that capture my feelings and impressions from my 30-year mateship with Warnie, I don't think I've ever had so many words and emotions come into my mind all at once. The ultimate competitor. Star power. Never beaten. Reliable. Accepting and caring. Infectious smile. The life of the party. Larrikin. Generous beyond peer. His achievements, passion, and knowledge of the game was something to behold. He was a superstar, a game changer, a leader, an innovator, and above all, a bloody good bloke. Warnie, there'll never be another like you. Man, myth, and now legend. Love you, mate.
I'm joined tonight by Shane's father, Keith Warne, and his first Test captain, Alan Border. Welcome, Keith and Alan.
Bruce.
Keith, when did you first meet AB?
Back in 1993, 92, Boxing Day Test. Shane had just had a great last day especially. 7 for 52, I think were his figures. And my wife and I were still sitting at the MCG, totally empty. I think we were only 2 left in the stadium. Next minute, Greg Matthews come and run out. And Greg said, you've got to come down the rooms. You can imagine what's going on in the rooms. They've just won the test. There's celebrations, champagne's going off, beer's going off. It's absolutely pandemonium. In the middle of all this, Alan has stopped, looked me in the eye, and would have stayed there for as long as I wanted to keep talking.
AB, and what did that mean to you at the time, that 7 for 52? What did it tell you about Shane?
He just announced himself, so it was all about that confidence that he gained from those performances, because he had a pretty rough initiation to the game, with Test match cricket, but he was very raw when he was selected, and he learnt very, very exponentially, very quickly. It meant, yeah, we had a serious spinner on our hands. You know, I wasn't predicting 700 wickets, but yeah, there was something in the gut that just told me that we're onto something special here.
So how did he get there? How did he become a Test cricketer?
He wanted to be a footballer, as most people have heard. He wanted to be an AFL player, and I really thought he was going to play AFL football. He was not a bad footballer. But he played cricket in the off-season, as most footballers did. They just sort of filled in until football season started again. When he got dropped off St Kilda senior list, AFL senior list, he was pretty well down the dumps. He went over to England, played some club cricket over there. Went over as a reasonably fit young fellow, weighing about 79 kilos, and came back about 99. He learned all about pies and beer.
Keith mentioned the AFL dream. Did you feel that made a difference to him when he realised he wasn't playing AFL footy?
When he got a taste of Test cricket, and he liked it, he liked the feel, the atmosphere. He hadn't arrived by a long stretch, but he got a taste of it, and I think that's when I think he started to think about as being a cricketer rather than an AFL footballer. Up until then, I think he was an AFL footballer playing cricket.
A lot of setbacks. The first finger operation, how did he reinvent himself after that?
After the operation, his finger came out stiff. It was totally straight. And the rehab he had to do was to force it, a bend in it, tie a string around it, put it around his wrist, sleep on it like that, wake up in the morning, take the string off and then open it again. And then that was a ritual every night until one day he's come out and said, "Have a look at this, Dad," and he was able to bend it. He was very concerned he may never be able to bowl the balls that he was bowling, never be the same Test leg spin bowler. And he was playing West Indies in Sydney, 97, just after it. He bowled Chanderpaul, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I reckon it would have turned as much, if not more, than the Gatting ball.
Got him! That's well bowled, Shane Warne. What a wicket that is. He's really teed him up, and he has struck just before lunch.
It was an incredible ball, and there's a photo of Shane doing that when he got the wicket. Now, people would think he's doing it because he got the wicket. He did that because he knew, I've still got it, I can still bowl.
The ball of the century. How did it change him, do you reckon? What did it mean? We know what it meant to cricket and I guess the legend that he is. What did it mean to him?
Well, he became a cricket superstar just on one ball. You were in Manchester for that first Test match and throwing the ball. So there was a bit of theatre about Warnie because so many people had heard about this young blonde leg spinner and they wanted to see what he had, and all of a sudden, bang, first ball.
And he's done it. He started off with the most beautiful delivery. Gatting has absolutely no idea what has happened to it. He still doesn't know.
And of course, it just went round the world, didn't it? The media just jumped on it straight away. And of course, the rest of the bowling performance in that Test match was pretty impressive. But that first ball, all of a sudden, just announced him. Everyone gets nerves and all the rest of it, but he used that confidence that just grew from that one particular delivery and that one bowling performance. He was away. He was away from there.
In 8 series that you played together, you lost just the one, and you won 4 of them against great opposition. So, as the Australian captain, how important was it to have Warnie?
Breath of fresh air. You know, we were a reasonably good cricket team, but, you know, still there was a few pieces of the puzzle to become challenging the West Indies, if you like, for that supremacy. When Warnie came on the scene and then started to show that improvement, that, you know, exponentially quick improvement, yeah, it was just a breath of fresh air for me.
And I think at the memorial we learnt so much about Shane. He did so much for a lot of people that nobody had known about, and a lot of this came forth.
Yeah, a lot more to Shane than, you know, the brilliant cricketer. They don't sort of see the real Shane Warne, who's he'll do anything for anyone, just a solid personality. And, you know, setting up foundations and working with kids behind the scenes. It's only the sort of like the banner headlines that people sort of think Warnie's this, you know, that sort of character. But there was a bit of that, yes. But there's a lot more of the real Shane is a far better person than meets the eye. Is
the amount of people who weren't aware of just how much he had done for charities and done for people, as Ellen just mentioned. And that's what really came home to me, that I'm so pleased now that people do know the true Shane Warne.
Well, he's been elevated into the legendary status in the Sport Australia Hall of Fame. It is so well deserved. Alan, I've really enjoyed the chat, and Keith, thank you so much.
No, it's been a pleasure, Bruce.
Thanks, Bruce.
It has.
Warnie, an incredible Australian icon who transcended cricket. Not only a true master of his craft, but a character that inspired cricketers and fans all around the world. He is missed. Now, we've got a smorgasbord of stars for you tonight. New inductees from Aussie Rules, Rugby League, Netball, basketball, golf, softball, Paralympics and Tenpin bowling. But now to our first inductee of the night. From humble beginnings in Queanbeyan to a glittering life in the fast lane across 12 years in Formula One.
The son of a motorcycle dealer, Mark Webber was always driven by going fast. His need for speed was apparent from day one, riding his bike on the family farm to terrorising the local Canberra Racing Club. Mark realised his dream of reaching the pinnacle in four-wheel motorsport. Formula One, representing 4 different teams. However, his greatest success was representing Red Bull, standing on the podium 9 separate times. But tonight, he receives due recognition for a remarkable career. Welcome to the Sport Australia Hall of Fame, Mark Webber.
Well, Mark, firstly, congratulations. The Sport Australia Hall of Fame is reserved for our champions.
Thanks very much. Yeah, what a club to join. I think that Australia has got a huge list of superstars, both past and present, and of course I'm absolutely stoked to be able to join such a community of legends.
What was it that appealed so much about Formula One, and did going fast become somewhat of an addiction?
Yes, level of addiction, I suppose, to the task. And it's not just the speed. I mean, we've done 370 kilometres an hour, but straight is easy. I could probably start to get mum to do that at some point. She might disagree with me, but the corners, that's the bit where we come alive. We want to brake late. We want to go through the corners as quick as possible. And as I found out, the further you get to the front, obviously the pressure just absolutely ramps up as well when you start fighting for victories and podiums. And it's on the back of the ticket. Motor racing's dangerous.
215 starts, 42 podiums, 9 wins. Which for you was your favourite moment?
I think I could take 2, please, mate, if I can. I think your first Grand Prix victory is massive. You'll never forget your first win. I think that it's more relief and the release of all those emotions, and I think that the journey that of course my family and the people that have been around me from day one.
This is a moment to savour for Mark Webber.
And I think winning the Monte Carlo Grand Prix for the first time in 2010. Lucky to fluke it twice, mate, in 2012 as well. But 2010 was a big day for me. Controlled the race, and that was pretty special. Knowing my heroes like Ayrton Senna and legends in the past have had success around there was very, very, very special. I'll never forget that day in my whole life.
There's always ups and downs. When were you most tested in your career?
I think I was probably most tested at the back end of my career. From 2010 onwards, I retired in 2013. But I think that racing against Sebastian, Lewis and Fernando for a title, you couldn't probably pick the 3 worst guys to try and win your first world title. But, that was tough. But it's like, well, it's better than the other option, which is actually, not performing at all. And, this is exactly what you want. You want to be able to be fighting for titles, which I enjoyed, of course, but they, with that comes, of course, bigger expectation, bigger pressure, more demands from the media. The whole profession just doubles down on how demanding it can be, and you're the one that has to deliver.
Mark, Mick Jagger said he would give up the drugs and the booze, but he could never walk away from the adrenaline rush that he got from performing on the big stage. What was hardest about walking away from the sport for you?
I think it was probably 2 years for me to actually go, I didn't really enjoy watching the racing too much, seeing other people have results, and not in a negative or jealous way. It's just like, could I had a bit more, the podiums, the celebrations, it's like, and you had all that yourself, but you're just like, could I have gone a bit longer? And you're delusional. You couldn't have, because I made the right call when I stopped, but you're just like, you're missing what they're experiencing to start with. But mate, I'm well and truly over that now, mate. I'm stoked to be out, put a little bit of mud on now, mate, a few kilos, and I'm enjoying just chilling out. So yeah, probably a couple of years, but after that, very, very happy.
From Queanbeyan to on top of the world, Mark, congratulations on your induction, and thank you for the memories.
No worries, thank you very much, and hello to everyone there tonight.
Up next, we reveal the winner of the Don Award for the most inspiring performance of 2022 as we celebrate our Australian sporting heroes and legends.
It's time now for one of the most prestigious awards in Australian sport, the Don Award, named in recognition of inaugural inductee Sir Donald Bradman. It's awarded to a current Australian athlete or team who, by their achievements and example in the last 12 months, have most inspired the nation. It's our pleasure now to introduce Sir Donald Bradman's son, John Bradman, to announce this year's winner of the Don Award.
I'm very pleased to be able to announce the winner of the Don Award, named after my father. My father was a great believer in sporting excellence, underpinned by the values of dignity, integrity, courage, and modesty. It's my great pleasure to announce that the winner of the Don Award for 2022 is Ash Barty.
Is the waiting over? We're going to find out on what might be one of the greatest nights of Australian sport. What an opener as Barty takes the first set. She's got it. What an athlete.
What a play.
Wimbledon was the childhood dream, but this one is for country. Her destiny is fulfilled. What a moment.
Our women's singles champion, Ash Barty.
Well, Ash Barty, you're only the third athlete to win the award twice. Congratulations. What does it mean to you?
Thank you. It's incredible. I think this is such a special night to celebrate sport all around Australia and iconic athletes, and I feel very privileged and humbled to be a very small part of that again and have an opportunity to be involved in such an epic celebration for Australian sport. It's incredible.
The pressure heading into that Oz Open, the expectation was huge.
It was, but it also felt like it was, in a sense, the easiest one for me because in my eyes, there was no pressure. It was just about me trying to redeem myself in a way and playing how I'd always wanted to play. Go out there and play like the kid that fell in love with sport. Go out there and play like the 5-year-old Ash that picked up a racket for the first time and was inspired by other athletes. And I think that was my challenge during the Australian Open was to really explore that and have fun doing it. And it was certainly my most enjoyable Australian Open. Result aside, it had absolutely nothing to do with it because it felt free. I played without consequence and I played like a little kid.
You mentioned that little kid. I think we've all seen that photo that went viral. It seems like an understatement. I don't even need to describe it because you know the one that you're talking about. What would you say to that little girl that tennis gave to you?
I really wouldn't believe the journey that I'd had. I think she'd be pretty proud of the journey and pretty grateful that I got to live out her dream for over 20 years.
You said you got to the Oz Open and I actually loved it and I enjoyed it. That has to come from a lot of mental strength to be able to block out all that outside noise.
Yeah, and I think it was probably the first Australian Open that I consciously made a decision to almost let it in and enjoy it and have fun with it and play with it because if I try and blocked it out, it became very serious. And I wanted an environment to try and create an environment that was fun, that was light, and that I could go out there, and I knew that was when I played my best tennis.
Take us to that match against Danielle Collins because the pressure's there, you know that this is a chance. She pushed you.
Yeah, she did. Danielle, we've had some very close battles in the past, and she's always the player that has this ability to flip a match on its head instantly. And I knew that was every possibility it was going to happen, and it did happen. But I was able to make a conscious decision in changing and changing tactically, adjusting. And all of a sudden, the crowd got involved. The moment became more apparent, it seemed. It was suffocating, but it was amazing. I felt energised, and I felt like I got that extra energy from the crowd, and it was just an exceptional night. And I think the reaction after the match point feels so unlike me.
Yeah, but the roar wasn't very you.
Yeah, I look back at it now, and it's mind-boggling to me that that's what I was feeling. And I think it was probably the energy from everyone that they were giving me, that all came out. It was just the most exceptional night.
And the first person you cuddled was Casey Delacroix.
I was so relieved Case was on the side of the court because it was this sense of, I was completely overwhelmed. I had no idea what to do. And then I had the opportunity to see my best mate on the side of the court. I said, I just need to hug someone. I need to hug Case, and to have her there was amazing.
And Yvonne there to present the trophy. It sounds like they'd brought all your people together.
That moment for me just encapsulated how lucky I was as a person, how fortunate I was as an athlete to have so many incredible people interested in my career and following along the journey.
And when you did accept that trophy, you didn't know that it was the last time that you were going to play professionally. You were planning to play on. Does it feel like the perfect ending or storybook ending?
Yeah, I think in my mind there was never going to be a perfect ending, but it was my perfect ending. It was never about finishing on a win or finishing on a really high emotional feeling. It was just about collectively. I felt it was right, and it was really important to me to be able to express that in my way and to be super open with my team, to be honest, to then communicate that to the world in a way that I felt was appropriate for me. Yeah, and now we've been led to 9 months of just an incredible life off the court, but it's been amazing.
Well, Ash, as an athlete and as a person, you've given Australians so much. Thank you for all you do. You continue to give back, but thank you so much, and a huge congratulations on your second Don Award.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Well, as always, such a deserved winner of the Don Award. Now, if you've got a spare moment, our next inductee should be right up your alley.
Cara Honeychurch, the first ever Tenpin bowler inducted into the Sport Australia Hall of Fame. A graceful left-hander who brought a mix of composure, accuracy, deft touch and speed to Tenpin bowling. Cara became the Women's World Champion in 1996 and triple gold medalist at the 1998 Commonwealth Games. Cara also won 9 Open major championships, including 3 consecutive Australian Opens from 2001 to 2003. Congratulations, Cara. You're now a member of the Sport Australia Hall of Fame.
Well, Cara, congratulations, inducted into the Sport Australia Hall of Fame. A big honour.
Oh, it's amazing. When I got that phone call, I couldn't believe it. I'm absolutely thrilled.
What did you tell your parents when you were a 7-year-old?
Yeah, I was always really determined as a child. I wanted to be a world champion.
Did you have any inclination which sport it would be?
No, I didn't. I went bowling one day with my parents. We were on holidays and I just fell in love with it. It was something very unique and different, and I came back home to Melbourne and joined a league, and immediately had some coaching right from the word go and said, I think this is a sport for me.
Your first score was 34.
Yes.
Modest, but enough to get excited.
Just enough to get me hooked. And there was just something about it that I absolutely loved.
1996, an unbelievable year at just 24.
Yeah, I had wanted to win the Bowling World Cup. That was the goal since the age of 10 years old, was to win that Bowling World Cup. I think when I won that, I think it was relief as much as anything else. But it's always nice to set a goal, and 14 years later, I think it was, to have that come to fruition. So that would be my happy place.
So how many gold medals have ever been awarded in 10-pin bowling at the Com Games?
Well, I think there's 5 in total, but I was fortunate enough to win 3 of them. And
60% of the Commonwealth Games gold medals are at your house.
Yeah, that's it.
You were at the top of your game. It was on a world stage, and then Operation Cara came into be.
There was a bit of hype leading up to it with me doing well, and I thought, once I get on the plane, it'll be fine. I'll just sort of fade into oblivion and I'll just, go about my business. I got off the plane, I'll never forget, and all these people just came running towards me. And one of the journalists said, what do you think about Operation Cara? And I said, what are you talking about? They said, there's going to be plenty of cheering and jeering to do everything they can to put you off. It was a bit disconcerting to start with, I have to say.
So how did you manage that?
I think you just get to a point where you realise that the only person that can actually affect you is you.
Yeah.
So I can either let it affect me, or I can just go out there and show them what I can do. And thankfully, I took the latter option, and the rest is history.
3 gold medals later.
Yeah, it really was a fantastic experience.
How big a move was it to go to the US for 3 years and compete on the tour?
Yeah, bowling in those days was a little bit different. Amateurs and professionals were quite distinct from one another. So when I'd won the Bowling World Cup and then had the opportunity to bowl in the Commonwealth Games, there was really nothing else that I had to achieve from an amateur perspective. So I made the decision to give up my amateur status and turn professional. Actually had the fortune of bowling 300 on television, which was an amazing experience. And
that was your second tournament?
Yeah, that was my second tournament. I really wasn't thinking about the perfect score until it got to about the, the 9th or 10th frame, and I actually felt remarkably calm, and I just said to myself, just go for it, you've got nothing to lose, and threw a great shot and shot 300, and yeah, that's the second time that it had ever been done in the history of the sport on television.
Will she do it? Oh my God! Standing ovation here in Richmond, Virginia for Cara Honeychurch. Her first tournament as a professional. Welcome to America.
An inductee into the Sport Australia Hall of Fame. Congratulations, it's been a remarkable journey, a world champion, well deserved.
Thanks, Hamish.
Still to come, Bruce returns to reveal our second legend of the evening, plus the winner of the Dawn Award. Welcome back to Heroes and Legends. We're not far away from our second legend elevation of the evening. But first, footy fans, have we got a treat for you?
Chris Judd is one of the most decorated and dynamic Australian rules footballers of the modern era, with his explosive bursts and midfield craft setting him apart across his 279-game career. In only his second season, Chris went from promising talent to shooting star when he kicked 5 first-half goals against the Lions I was coaching at the Gabba. Chris had the distinction of not only captaining 2 clubs, but also winning a Brownlow medal at each of them. A 6-time All-Australian, 5-time club champion, Norm Smith medalist and premiership captain, Juddy did it all. Welcome, Chris Judd, to the Sport Australia Hall of Fame.
Juddy, congratulations. The Sport Australia Hall of Fame is reserved for our very best. When did you first have a footy put in your hands?
From about 3, and just remember it being out of my hands very little for the next, 28 years, really. You know, certainly in wintertime as a young kid, wanted to be a footy player. In summertime as a young kid, wanted to be a cricket player. And then as a teenager, wanted to be a good skateboarder and be able to pick up girls. But that was not always as easy to do as you wanted it to be. But from 16 on was just pretty much obsessed with trying to make a go of playing footy.
You had an overarching philosophy that to be great at something, you had to do things differently to others. How early do you have that sort of non-consensus view? I mean, it's quite a mature position to be in. And what did you do that was different?
I think there were just small events throughout childhood that confirmed that's the way the world works. I mean, my earliest memory in athletics was as sort of a mediocre 800-metre runner who would come first or second in the district every year, not do a heap of training, and then come 7th or 8th in the state championships. And Andy from Sandy said, do you want to actually do some training? I said, oh, that sounds like a good idea.
Who's Andy from Sandy?
Andy from Sandy's the old man. So we embarked on, a 7-day-a-week training program for about 4 weeks. But we did that and came out and won the state championships as a 9 or 10-year-old or whatever it was.
You took 12 seconds off in 4 weeks, didn't you?
It was, I did actually, that's good research, but yeah, I did. And those sort of things, as a kid, they can become real core beliefs.
What was the moment that you thought, I've arrived? Was it against the Lions at the Gabba?
Yeah, probably. I mean, initially, just a huge focus was just to get a game. You know, once you've been drafted, even as an early draft pick, you never know if that's going to happen. So that was a big milestone. And I think, I probably think the Brisbane game was a bit of a feeling where I'm an AFL player now, cemented a spot, I can be a good player here, and then you can start to think more grander about what sort of a team you want to be a part of and what you want to achieve as a collective.
5 goals and a half.
It was good. It was good. It's a good day's work.
How does your life change winning a Brownlow at 21?
It did feel like a bit of a before and after moment. I felt way too young. Like, my mind hadn't put me in that realm of that type of player that wins Brownlows. And all of a sudden I had a partner who was, public property. So yeah, I probably felt from a privacy perspective that was really evaporated post-Brownlow and certainly a weight of expectation that got added. But by the same token, what a huge thrill.
You started here and you finished there. How big a decision was it for you to come home?
It was a chance to come home and be close to family and friends outside of football, but also play for a big Melbourne club. You know, I grew up catching the train to the MCG on Saturdays and the idea of just being able to play at the MCG, which just has some sort of an emotional pull over a lot of people, particularly in Melbourne, I reckon, who grew up watching so many great sporting events there. That was just too hard to resist. The decision, whilst it was hard in a sense of how uncomfortable it was, it didn't feel like it was a challenging decision on what the right thing to do was.
You've always shunned the spotlight. You've always been a humble champion that just did his thing, but do you think a motorcade to get you off on your final game was a little bit too much?
The funny thing is, once you do your knee, like the pain's intense for 5 seconds, and then the nerve's severed and there's no pain at all. You know, I'll say to people I should have retired the year before, which I should have, but I would have had doubts. I would have been able to convince myself I probably had 3 or 4 years left. At least I knew, like, there was 0 left.
Jody, you're one of the best that's ever played the game. Congratulations on your induction in the Sport Australia Hall of Fame.
Thanks, Sam. Cheers.
Well done. Here's netball champion Liz Ellis to introduce tonight's next inductee.
Catherine Cox, one of the most decorated netballers of her generation. The 3rd most capped diamond ever. Kath represented Australia 108 times, scoring a remarkable 2,317 goals for her country. But let me fill you in on what the statistics don't show. Coxie is a loyal friend, equal parts funny and naughty. She's a social organiser, but also loves nothing more than a quiet night in. She's a brilliant mum to the beautiful Harper, and watching her embrace that role has been a joy. More than that though, she's my best friend, and I couldn't be prouder to welcome her into the Sport Australia Hall of Fame. Congratulations, Kath Ann.
Catherine Cox, member of the Sport Australia Hall of Fame. You said when you found netball, you found your people. Describe your people for me.
Tall. Yeah. I have the most horrendous posture from years of just trying to look shorter than I was. As soon as I started playing netball, I found my people in terms of just, you know, people that love to be involved in a team sport, probably first and foremost, but certainly some tall athletes in there as well, where I felt like, oh, I can actually stand with my shoulders back now. This is a treat.
I think Australia's lucky, because this blew my mind. You were born in New Zealand.
Oh, here it is, out of the bag.
You only moved over here when you were 6 years old. Was there a chance you could have been a silver fern?
There could have been a chance. There actually was a very good one. So I missed out on selection for the Commonwealth Games to go to Kuala Lumpur with the Australian team. And at that point, New Zealand rang me and said, would I consider playing for them? So I considered it. I did seriously consider it because I didn't know how long I was going to be in the Australian team for. I didn't know if this was just my time to have a good solid crack. So I thought about it. And then they said, as part of that commitment, I'll have to move to New Zealand to, you know, give it my all. And at that point, I was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. So thanks, but no thanks.
We're glad that we had you, because 3 World Cups, 3 Commonwealth Games, but of course, I want to go back to Manchester. Take us to 2002. It's double extra time. You're against the New Zealanders. Set the scene, because it was just one of the great moments of Australian netball.
Yeah, that was my first big tournament. About 3 days out from the final, the gold medal match, I had the worst case of gastro I've ever had in my life. I was isolated from the team. Anyway, fortunately for me, I didn't start the game, because that game went on to be one of the longest games played. It was double extra time against New Zealand. I came on at half time. I shot the goal that got us into extra time, and a couple of big ones then to get us into extra time again the second time. It was Sherelle McMahon, though, that shot the game to win it for us. We had to be up by 2. She's shooting and I'm standing there doing this half-assed.
This wince.
I'm here if you need, but please, God, don't pass me the ball. So Sherelle shot the goal and we won, and it was just one of the first moments that I've felt that sort of elation I think only an athlete in those moments ever feel.
It must feel good when you get your eye in like that as a shooter. Were there moments where you just went, I can't miss here, I'm on?
There's been a few, for sure, but I also think that's a lot to do with the people around you as well. And particularly when I was at the Swifts, I was playing some of my best netball because Julie Fitzgerald was our coach. I was one of the few players that did do that, and probably still now. It's the reason they changed the game recently and brought in the super shot, is to bring back some of that long-range shooting that just kind of fell away from our game, but I loved that.
I think another one of your legacies could be that you didn't look at the scoreboard later in your career as a shooter. I still think you're pulling my tail with this. You didn't look.
No, and it used to blow people's minds.
Yeah.
But to me, there was no point, because every time the ball came near me, I was doing the best I possibly could with it. So me looking at the scoreboard and putting pressure on myself because, oh my God, we're down by 6, or, you know, it's a close game or whatever it was, I didn't feel like I needed to do that. The last game of my career, though, it was close. I wasn't entirely sure, and I snuck a little look, and there was about a minute and a half left, and I saw that we were up by enough that we would win the game. And then I just burst into tears.
So you're crying with a minute to go.
At that point, I thought, that's it, I'm getting the fairy tale ending. But I didn't look up till a minute and a half left to go, and then it was very hard to play the rest of the game with tears in my eyes because I couldn't see what was happening. But
the defender's probably like, finally I'm a chance, you can't see.
Yeah, get the windscreen wipers out.
We absolutely love watching you. We love what you've done, and congratulations on being part of the Hall of Fame.
Thank you.
Next, Bruce returns for tonight's second legend announcement. But as we go to the break, we pay tribute to those members of the Sport Australia Hall of Fame who have recently passed away. To be named a legend of the Sport Australia Hall of Fame is the highest accolade that can be bestowed on an Australian sportsperson. So the time has come to find out which sporting hero is next to have the great honour.
Hi, I'm Sebastian Coe, and I'd like to take maybe just a few moments talking about an extraordinary athlete, the great, late Ron Clarke. I sensed a sensitive soul underneath the mahogany-hard physicality and mental strength. If you look at Ron Clarke's career in the pantheon of great endurance runners, you have to put him absolutely up there in the top echelon. And one of those athletes that was a game changer because his approach to endurance running set the scene for a generation. It's my great privilege and delight to welcome you, Ron Clarke, to the legendary status in Australian sport.
And I'm joined by Ron Clarke's son, Marcus, and distance great and Hall of Famer, Steve Monteghetti. Welcome, guys.
Hi, Bruce. How are you?
Thanks, Bruce. Marcus, good to be here.
Let's go back. I'm thinking you're old enough, Marcus, to have seen your father run and things. I mean, what memories have you got?
In 1965, I was only about 4 years of age. And in 1965, I do recall him ringing up one day when he just run the world record for 10,000 metres. And he asked me whether I'd seen him. And I said, yes, not even on our television, but you're on the television next door. So I really hadn't appreciated fame at that stage. But in 1968, we took some time off and spent a long time touring with him and training up at altitude up at Font-Romeu in the Pyrenees in preparation for the Mexico Olympics. And so I was very aware by then.
That Mexico Olympics, I might jump to that now because you've opened the door. He's got to go to Mexico City at altitude, which was a great disadvantage, and yet he was in the form of his life.
The thing I remember about Ron is he was always ahead of the game.
Yes.
And for him to take 5 months off to understand that he needed to go to altitude and prepare just shows me what a visionary he was.
And yet so fit and such great form and everything that he'd achieved that he collapses at the end of the 10,000 metres, is unconscious for 10 minutes, and the famous photo of Ron with an oxygen mask and Dr. Corrigan in tears, trying to save his life at the time.
Ron was trying to tell him he was all right, but the fact is his tongue had swollen so much that he couldn't speak. So it was quite traumatic.
And unbelievably, 2 days later, he runs a heat of the 5,000 metres in the same conditions. It's hard to get your head around it, isn't it? You talk about bravery.
When you talk sometimes bravery, we relate to victory, but in this instance, it was bravery for his country. because he knew how hard it was going to be. That's to be able to come back, having had that personal experience, be able to stand on the start line again, that's truly brave.
The first world record Ron broke was in 1963 in December in Melbourne. He thought he could get the 6-mile world record because it had been set in 1956. He thought that was soft. He didn't think he'd get the 10,000 world record because it was held by the Olympic champion. You know this story, don't you?
Yes, I do.
So you tell us. So he gets both records, but tell us how
Well, he
did
stops
it.
after 6 miles, having broken the world record. But a mentor of his was Neil Robbins, who at the finish line, which was where the 6 mile was, and there was another 400 metres to thereabouts for 10,000. And he yelled out "Fat," which was his nickname that Jack gave him. "Fat, go, keep going. You'll make the 10,000 metre. Go, go, go." So with that thinking, he just put the foot down and sprinted the last lap after stopping for a little while.
So got both the 6 mile and the 10,000 metre world record in the one run.
They passed the halfway mark in 2 minutes, 2 seconds, and then there's a sensation. Exclusive picture of Clark's form. Landy ran on a few strides and then came back to help his fallen opponent. A truly magnificent gesture of sportsmanship.
Everyone in Australian sport probably knows that story in 1956 where John went back for Ron.
He fell over and John Landy was behind him and he stepped on his arm with his spikes, so he went back to see how he was. And Ron just pushed him on. He was a long way behind, but he took off and hit the lead with about 500 metres to go and won by a street.
Every time I drive past that statue, Bruce, I think about that occasion. It brings a smile to my face. It's such a positive statue. In this instance, it was for such a courageous and selfless act.
Ron didn't get selected for the Olympics in '56, and I think he was always cross about that, you know. But he did have the honour of lighting the cauldron. It was a tough day for him because he got burnt as well, didn't he?
Well, he did, but he had to run up a long way. It's not easy to run up all these steps with a torch, but of course someone had thought they put a bit more magnesium in the torch to make sure it didn't go out. And there was magnesium everywhere and it burnt his arm and his shirt. And then when he got up there, and he was only on a little box, someone had turned the gas up to make sure it actually did lit, and it exploded. And he fell off he staggered off the little wooden box.
He had such an influence, didn't he, when he came back to Australia and went to the Gold Coast and became mayor, of course.
He was very keen on making sure that this younger generation understood the history, but then once they got it, he was then very keen on saying, you know, how can I help, what can I do, let's talk about training. And then again, as mayor of the Gold Coast 7 years before, in 2011, putting that bid forward to have the Commonwealth Games in southeast Queensland, which he did, and was such a successful Games.
Well, he revolutionised the sport in so many ways, didn't he? The times that he ran, the way he ran those times, and his inclusiveness of the people that he ran against, I think, don't you? Yeah. A great moment for the Clark family and so well deserved, Marcus.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce. Thanks, Monis.
Good on you. Well done, boys.
Thanks, Bruce, Marcus and Steve. What a wonderful reflection on the incredible impact of Ron Clark on Australian sport and, of course, his beloved athletics. Next to join the Hall of Fame, a rugby league superstar who bleeds blue.
Brad Fittler, the standard for excellence and longevity that few could match in rugby league. A wildly talented teenager, Fittler made his first grade debut for Penrith while still at school. 2 years later, he was a part of the Panthers' first ever premiership success in 1991. He became a dual grand final winner at his next club, skippering the Roosters to victory in 2002. On the representative front, he was New South Wales' youngest ever State of Origin player, making 31 appearances for the Blues, 14 as captain. In 2000, his line-breaking ability earned him the Golden Boot Award as the world's best player. Welcome, Brad Fittler, the man affectionately known as Freddie, to the Sport Australia Hall of Fame.
Brad, congratulations, an inductee into the Sport Australia Hall of Fame.
Thank you very much. It's, quite the honour.
Who was the first to call you Freddie?
So Jack Gibson, when I first started Origin, it might have even been the City team, because he was the coach, and I walked in, he said, "What's your name, boy?" I said, "Brad." He goes, "Sit down there, Fred."
And that was it.
So Paul Langmack, he's got a big mouth, so I think he was there and he went and told the story to a journalist, and that was it.
Haven't been called Brad much since?
Never been called Brad since.
A newspaper described you as destined for stardom. They were right. So much so that you debut as a high school student. How did you handle the celebrity and the fanfare that came with being a teenage phenomenon?
I'm not sure. I think you'd have to ask my friends. I think at stages I mostly got full of myself, and that had sort of mostly come out in maybe partying too much. Or I remember Phil Gould early on in my career gave me a really good talking to. And
What did he say?
No, well, I'd made the Australian team and I was 18 and I come back a bit overweight and pretty much dragged me in a room for about 40 minutes prior to one session. I walked out crying, went home, come back and went through a training program just after that, and within a month I was all good, back to peak fitness and on the path again.
1991 was so big in so many ways. Penrith's first premiership, and you're a part of it. Do you think at that point these will continue to come?
So my third game was a semi-final, and I thought, well, you know, I'd been playing semis all my junior career coming through, and the year after we made the grand final and we got beat in the grand final, and the following year we won the grand final. And obviously I just thought this is going to happen forever. You know, every year we're just going to be in grand finals, and it stopped really abruptly.
In 2000, the Golden Boot, the world's best player, that's some sort of an exclamation point and affirmation of where you stood in the game.
It was a good couple of seasons, especially that year. I just met my partner, Marie. Our footy team got to the grand final. We had a great Origin series. It was just one of those years where, you know, it just felt like spring the whole year. We worked hard and we did well, and off the field was fantastic as well.
You win your second premiership 11 years after your first. How different was that with the Roosters than with the Panthers?
Now, one was kid coming through where I was on the back of other people's hard work, and this one was a lot of hard work. Yeah, just living up to expectations and dealing with all that sort of stuff, which takes, you know, takes time to get used to and understand. This one was, yeah, definitely had to give more.
Mate, that is the greatest thing you can ever do. Oh, I love everyone for making me feel this good. This is beautiful.
State of Origin, as a player, it must be like walking into the Coliseum.
You know, I look back on my Origin career and I sort of go, you know, I could have done a lot better. During the peak, I suppose, of my playing, I retired from Origin, but I got a chance to come back, so that was wonderful.
The fairy tale ended.
Fairy tale, yeah, got the try.
Lockyer, charge down, no knock on. Fittler's going to score. Fittler, it's farewell. It's farewell. Comes with a try.
When I scored the try, the charge down ran around, but when I turned around, I just recognised actually the rest of the team were kids. You know, they were like me when I was 18, so I just had this moment where I was one way and they were coming at me, and it was awesome, you know, just all these young faces all excited and, you know, but just the changing, you know, me being old, just watching all these young faces, it was fantastic.
Brad/Freddie, congratulations on the induction of the Sport Australia Hall of Fame. Enjoy the
Thank you.
cold shower tonight.
Yeah, I sure will, mate. Thank you very much.
Stick around. Coming up, we announce the winner of the Dawn Award. Plus, we have plenty more of your sporting favourites. In 2021, a new award was introduced to honour one of this country's finest ever athletes, a genuine sporting icon, Dawn Fraser. The Dawn Award honours an individual, team or organisation from this or a previous generation who are courageous, brave and have changed sport for the better. Last year, the inaugural winner of the Dawn Award was tennis champion Yvonne Goolagong-Cawley. And in 2022, we recognise yet another icon of Australian sport. To make the announcement, here's the wonderful Dawn Fraser herself.
I'm honoured to announce the winner of the Dawn Award for 2022 is the late Peter Norman, former Australian track athlete and 5 times national 200 metres champion. Norman won the silver medal in the 200 metres at the 1968 Olympics in Mexico, and his time still stands as an Australian record. What Peter is recognised for is the role he played standing alongside the silent protest of 2 American sprinters at the medal ceremony, widely deemed the Black Power salute.
Well, Jan Norman, the wife of the late Peter Norman, thank you so much for joining us to reflect. What do you think this award would have meant to Peter and also means to you and the family?
Oh, it would have meant everything to Peter, and certainly for the family. It's wonderful for us, but it's a shame Peter's not here to be able to accept it himself.
Take us back to the 68 Olympics at Mexico City. Describe to us what happened for that famous moment now, the salute. What happened after the race?
Tommy and John were discussing, of course, about the gloves, and then it was found that John had left his gloves behind. So they then decided to wear a glove each, but Peter really was very keen to support them somehow and thought, well, how am I going to show my support for them? And as they were heading out to the ceremony, there was an American rower and he had his badge on, the Olympic Project for Human Rights. So Peter, well, I heard he snatched it off him, but let's hope he didn't do
sure
that.
He asked politely.
I don't know about that either. But anyway, he acquired the badge and very proudly wore that badge on the dais. And then there was some boos and jeers. And that's when Peter knew what's all happening.
And what was happening was Tommy Smith and John Carlos were doing the Black Power salute.
Yes, they were.
In order to represent what was happening in American politics at the time.
Yes, and certainly in athletics as well. For example, I think 90% of the athletic team were black athletes, and yet all the officials were white.
And it was amazing what he did and what he stood for in Mexico, but it did have ramifications going forward. I mean, he qualified 13 times for the 200 metres.
He did.
And 5 times for the 100 metres at the next Olympics, and yet wasn't selected.
Peter didn't really get into any trouble there, but I guess in the ensuing years, yes, he perhaps was, ostracised as far as the athletics officials. And then not being picked for the 1972 Olympics, well, they just decided that Peter there was a bit of a loose cannon and they'd rather not take him at all.
There was a beautiful quote from John Carlos talking about Peter, and he said, "We expected to see fear in his eyes, and instead we saw love."
Yes.
And the fact that they were just so surprised that this white Aussie bloke wanted to advocate for their cause.
And as a result, they just remained firm friends, for the rest of Peter's life.
He did tragically pass in 2006,
Yes.
and there were 2 very special pallbearers.
Yes, that was amazing.
Well, we wish that he was here, but we're also delighted that you are here and that we can do a small part to acknowledge what was such a significant moment in Australian sporting history. And he's such a deserving winner of the Dawn Award. Thank you so much for your time today.
It's a pleasure.
An incredible achievement, the second winner of the Dawn Award. Now, most of us have tossed a ball around in the backyard or at weekend sport or even the local dog park. But how many can say they've transformed the skill of throwing into an art form? That's what our next inductee did.
Tanya Harding was just an amazing pitcher. She played for Australia for over 15 years. She played in 4 Olympic Games, an amazing feat. Every pitcher would want to be like Tanya Harding. She could throw any pitch up to speeds of 115 kilometres an hour, and she was just so consistent. Congratulations, Tanya Harding.
Tanya, congratulations on your induction.
Thank you.
Your mother, Sandra, what was her view on your ability early days?
She thought I wasn't very good.
She was wrong.
Yes. Oh, she came to be wrong, but bless my mum. She never told me that I wasn't really that good. When I started playing softball, I'd always tell people that I would play for Australia. And I don't even really know where that came from.
Were you a confident child?
Yeah, I was confident. And clearly I didn't listen to what people would say, like it just didn't bother me. We brought up in a working class family in Bulimba, and my dad built this net in the backyard, and I would just be out there all day whenever I could, throwing the ball, hitting the ball.
What's the art of becoming one of the world's best pitchers? It's not just speed.
Perseverance, a lot of resilience. There's a lot of hits. You take a lot of losses. I think the older I got, the smarter I got. Obviously, physically, when I competed in 2008, I was 36. So I didn't have the physical strength that I once had, but I had the know-how, and I had a bit more brains.
Tanya Harding is in the US in the 90s. You're only a year apart from Tanya Harding, who became infamous. Were there any difficulties?
I remember the Tanya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan saga, but it meant nothing to me. And then the media played on it, right? So one of our girls had a sore knee at training. She had it bandaged up, and they actually came to the training. They're like, did Tanya do this? We're like, oh, it's like, are you crazy?
The first Australian to twice pitch wins against the US at the Olympics.
Yes.
That's something.
Probably the 96 Olympics is one of my most fondest memories. And going into that game, the USA were on like 120 game winning streak. Nobody had beaten them. what were the chances of us beating them? And then there was just so much controversy surrounding the game. It was like a 3-hour delay, it was raining, it was hot, it was in America, the crowds were full, everyone was pumped. And then we go into extra innings. You know, we win the game on one pitch. And the American pitcher, Elisa Fernandez, she had pitched to that point in time a perfect game. She hadn't given up a single hit, a single run, a single base. Like, we did not look even close to scoring. Yeah, that was everything that dreams are made for, that particular game.
Some scripts are too far-fetched, even for Hollywood.
Yeah.
That was one.
Oh, absolutely. And then to do it again in Sydney, and it was almost like deja vu. I just remember thinking in Sydney, I cannot believe this is happening again. It's insane.
You've had an extraordinary career. Congratulations on your induction. Sandra was wrong. You're now
Sandra
a
was
Hall of
wrong,
Famer.
yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Don't go anywhere. If you're a fan of basketball, surfing, skateboarding, Paralympics or golf, you won't be disappointed with what's still to come.
With 3 more set to join this illustrious group, none come more influential in their sport than our next inductee. To introduce him, he's 3-time NBA champion, Luke Longley.
One of the most significant coaches and administrators in Australian basketball history, Dr. Adrian Hurley has had an incredible impact on the sport and its athletes for over 40 years. Founding father of the AIS basketball program, he led the Boomers to their first Olympic medal playoff and later coached the Perth Wildcats to an NBL championship. What made Doc such a good coach and mentor, I really believe, was his patience and his foresight. He was part of the brain trust that brought basketball into the future. It is my absolute honour to welcome Dr. Adrian Hurley to the Sport Australia Hall of Fame.
Adrian, nice to get a big pump up from Luke Longley. Congratulations on the Sport Australia Hall of Fame induction.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you to Luke. Yes, that's very nice.
You made him.
Well, yes, I'd say that, but we often say we owe each other lots of things, and it's always rewarding just to see people be successful when you have them as young people, and then they go on and do things like he's done. It's you know, you get very proud of all your kids and who grow into be stars and superstars.
In 1981, you were the founding father of the AIS basketball program. What did you start with?
Nothing, absolutely nothing. We didn't have a ball, we didn't have a court, had nothing. And I remember Mr. Ellicott, who was the minister, just said, look, we said, what are we supposed to do? They said, he said, whatever it is, do it before the government changes their mind. And because they put the money up. So it was the most exhausting, exhilarating, passionate time you could ever have, because there were 7 of us, 7 sports, 7 coaches, and we just bounced off each other all the time. And it was, you know, it was 6 o'clock in the morning start, 9 o'clock at night finish, 7 days a week.
And with that opportunity, participation rose. And in the 80s and the 90s, basketball boomed. Why was that?
I often say to people, to me, the pivotal moment was when the USSR came out to Australia, and they were the #1 team in the world. We played them 12 times in 6 months here in Australia. We played them every capital city. And then we had, in '88, the men's team and women's team both reached the semi-finals of the Olympics. And so the late 80s, things really started to take off.
The 88 team, coached by you, played off for a medal.
Yes, and that was that surprised everybody. And I think that, I think part of that, we defeated Spain, who we'd never beaten before, and they were red hot. They were playing wonderful basketball at those Olympics, and they were in the favourites to fight out the medals as well. And we'd got into that top 4, which illustrated to the world and to ourselves, more importantly, that these things are doable.
So what is the art of coaching?
It's human management. I see people, young kids today, coaching, they have clipboards and they look at offences and they look at defences and all that. So I said, it's got nothing to do with it. It doesn't matter what offence you run or what tactics you run. It's about how you handle the kids, how you handle the players, how you manage them, how you motivate them, how you pick them up, how you can be. Sometimes you've got to kick them, sometimes you've got to be severe with them, but most of the time you've got to be gentle and encouraging, and most importantly, give it to them.
You love the game so much. Player, coach, administrator, mentor, writer, historian. Is there anything you haven't covered?
When I wrote the books on the history of the sport up to 2000, or the history of the Olympics.
Hoop high.
Yes, that came about because I was talking to some 56 Olympians, and this was in 2000 in Sydney, and they said, look, there's no evidence that we were ever here. There's nothing written about us. There's nothing on the internet, and no one knows what we did. And so I said, I'll fix that. And so, again, and that was passion, had to be. It took 13 years, and again, that word passion.
Well, Doc, congratulations on being an inductee in the Sport Australia Hall of Fame.
Thank you very much. It's a great honour.
Let's welcome back Dawn Fraser to introduce the next inductee in the class of 2022.
Cara Webb is one of Australia's sport's greatest success stories. A shy teenager, golfing talent, Cara went on to become one of the most dominant female golfers on the world stage. She claimed 7 career majors, 41 LPGA Tour titles, and at the age of 30, became the youngest person to be inducted into the World Golf Hall of Fame. It's taken quite a number of years to induct Cara into the Sport Australia Hall of Fame, and I'm glad that I'm the person to be able to induct her in the Hall of Fame.
Cara Webb, welcome and congratulations. Let's go right back to the start. How does a young girl from Ayr get involved in golf? I believe that your grandparents played a vital role.
Yeah, my grandparents owned 2 businesses in the main street, and Sundays was their only day off, and they'd go and play 9 holes. And when I showed a little bit of interest in golf around the age of 4, that's when they started taking me out with them. I had just plastic clubs and plastic golf ball, and the head of my golf club was flying off further than I could actually hit the golf ball.
We see so many sporting stars who had grand dreams from a young age. Were you one of them?
I went and watched my first ever professional golf tournament. That was my 12th birthday present from my grandparents. It was the Queensland Open in 1986. And I got to see Greg Norman play in person, and came home from that trip and told my parents that I wanted to be a professional golfer when I grew up.
You joined the LPGA Tour in America in 1996, and your success was immediate. By 2002, you'd won 6 of your 7 golf majors. It must have felt like not whether you'd win, but by how much.
In the lead up to events, I prepared so badly that it almost took some expectation out. As I got older, I realised that for whatever reason, I just needed to walk through onto that first tee on the first round, and this great golf would come out. And sometimes almost would shock me because I had practiced so poorly in the days leading up.
Your 7th major victory came in 2006. Talk us through the finish of the Kraft Nabisco Championship.
Found myself on the 72nd hole. I think I was tied for the lead at the time, and I had a wedge from 116 yards, and I knew I needed to at least birdie it to have a chance of maybe a playoff. And just hit the purest wedge I've probably ever hit, straight at the pin, and it bounced twice and went in the hole.
How do you do?
It's the most excited I've ever been on a golf course. Anytime I think about it, I can feel the emotions of exactly how I felt when that went in, and then all the way up to the green. 10 minutes later in the score tent, realised that, my best bet is that I'm going to be in a playoff, so now I'm going to have to calm myself down and get ready for that. So I ended up being in a playoff with Lorena Ochoa and birdieing that same hole to win. The winner at that event traditionally jumps into the lake that surrounds the 18th hole, and then they have a robe for the champion once they get out.
You seem to love coming back to Australia and playing in front of your home fans. It was 8 Australian Ladies Masters with 5 Women's Australian Opens. It's an incredible home record.
I only got so many home games a year where the crowd was on my side. I really loved it. And I wanted to show my friends and family, but the Australian public, what I was doing overseas. I wanted them to see that at home in Australia as well.
Now a member of the Sport Australia Hall of Fame. We're so proud of you, Cara. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
There's plenty more still to come, including surfing champion Lane Beachley, plus our final inductee of the night.
so good to see you again.
So good
to
see you too.
It's been ages since we've caught up. We got to meet through the Sport Australia Hall of Fame Scholarship and Mentoring Program, which I am eternally grateful for that opportunity.
Yeah, me too.
It was such a blessing to be able to share some of my lessons with you, but I'd love to understand, what did it give you?
It was such an amazing experience for me, just like getting to chat with you all the time on the phone and then meet up just gave me like such a boost of confidence, and kind of learning everything that you've gone through in your life to get where you are and then passing that on to me was so incredible.
And then I remember when we gave you the scholarship money and you put the money into building a ramp in your bedroom.
Yeah.
Now, I've never heard of any other athlete doing that. Is your bedroom big enough for a skate ramp?
This was at a time where COVID started and all the skate parks were locked down. So I really, really want to skate, so I'm gonna do this. And it was such a fun project. Like, my bed was in the cupboard, open down. My whole room was just a ramp pretty much.
Sport Australia tend to put athletes who aren't really synergised in their sporting professions.
Yeah.
You know, they tend to keep them so that polar opposites, so they can come from a really fresh and different objective or perspective.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that they saw the benefit of putting you and I together and sharing in that experience. I must admit, I really enjoyed being part of your dream team, because I really felt like I was adding value to your life. And by doing that, it added a lot of value to my life as well. I want to support you into the Paris Olympics and beyond.
Thank you. It's been the most amazing experience and I'm so grateful for it.
What a great example of the type of relationship which is formed through the Sport Australia Hall of Fame Scholarship and Mentoring Program. The program is proudly supported by the Australian Sports Commission and the AIS, and more information can be found on the Sport Australia Hall of Fame website. Bruce is set to rejoin us very soon, but next, our final inductee of 2022, a true pioneer who paved the way for so many to reach their sporting hopes and dreams.
The Australian Paralympic movement owes its origins to pioneering orthopaedic surgeon and rehabilitation specialist Sir George Bedbrook. Bedbrook revolutionised the treatment of spinal injuries in Australia and will play a leading role in taking Australian teams abroad to major events, including the Paralympic Games. I'm sure I speak for many para-athletes when I say thank you to Sir George, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome him into the Sport Australia Hall of Fame.
Well, Simon Bedbrook, the grandson of inductee Sir George Bedbrook, thank you so much for joining us and for accepting this honour on your grandpa's behalf.
Thanks very much. It's very exciting.
Well, he's an orthopaedic surgeon, but it seemed like his work with his patients only began really after surgery, because he was so caring in what they did and how their lives were going to look after they finished, wasn't it?
Yeah, so he was very lucky. He came across Ludwig Gutmann early in his career, who was a very famous surgeon in England at Stoke Mandeville, and a big part of the treatment was integrating sport into the medical care. So he was straight away, when he came back to Perth and took over the spinal ward there, was very keen that they get involved in sport. In those early days, it was archery and a little bit of wheelchair basketball, but it was anything. I don't think it mattered what it was.
The fact that sport was so integrated, he was so far ahead of his time.
He then went on to build or design a specific spinal cord building, and one of the great things about this building was that most of the rooms in the building actually had views of the basketball court, so that if you were a newly injured person, you could see that there was a bit of a future after your accident, and he really used that as a key to getting him out. And it wasn't just playing sport socially. He then really wanted him to go on and play competitive sport, and that was the next big change, and particularly with the 1957 Stoke Mandeville Games. So he got 7 athletes together, put together a team. It was the first sort of international competition where some Canadians went, and then there was 7 Australians went over, and that's where it all started. That's where that was sort of the birth of the Paralympics and the Commonwealth Games.
Can you imagine now if he could see what the Paralympic movement was from those 7 people that we first sent? It's pretty amazing.
He'd be blown away.
And if Sir George said something was going to happen, it happened.
It was going to happen. He was a very, very serious guy. He had no bedside manner at all with his patients, but he would make things happen. And there's some great stories where he was travelling with the team and they landed in Bombay in India, and the plane had to refuel. So all the athletes were ordered out of the plane. Grandad was like hell, so he got the Prime Minister of India on the phone to say, this is just not happening, we're not moving. It's hot and it's humid out on the tarmac, and it was like, no way. And
how do you get a hold of the Prime Minister of India? What kind of phone book's that?
He's got that sort of phone book.
Did he love sport? Did he have any sporting prowess himself?
He was a terrible sportsman.
We're here for the Sport Australia Hall of Fame.
He says something in his memoirs about that he wished he'd played a bit more cricket and maybe a bit less reading, but that's what he enjoyed
enjoyed to do. So he actually wasn't that good a sportsman, but...
Well, we're glad that he kept reading and became a surgeon, because the rest is all history. And so we're so grateful that you've taken the time to come and have a chat to us. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Congratulations to everyone who's been honoured tonight. Bruce, what a celebration of sporting excellence in this country.
And Haim, you've had so much fun, I can tell tonight, you and Abby, talking to the gods and goddesses of Australian sport.
It has been an absolute privilege. There's some thanks we need to make.
Haim, let's start with the Australian Sports Commission for really getting behind our fantastic scholarship and mentoring program, and our friends at the Australian Institute of Sport.
Absolutely. Victoria University, who we collaborate with on the National Sport Integrity Forum.
Sports Cover, they're wonderful supporters of the Chairs Round Table for Sports series and is presenting partner of the state-based events.
And a massive thanks to News Corp and also to Channel 7 and Lewis Martin for the opportunity to share these iconic stories with the nation.
Well, I say here after Channel 7 and Louis, you know that. And the Australian Sports Museum at the MCG, where our exhibition is located.
To Stamping Ground PR and Jam TV, we say thank you.
And Haim, to you and Abby for those fantastic interviews.
And to you, Bruce, thank you. And congratulations again to everyone honoured as a part of the Heroes and Legends, a celebration of the 2022 Sport Australia Hall of Fame. And with that,
good night.